Hey everyone, Pugs here with 2 new reviews for y'all. Today I'm reviewing Something Smells and Bossy Boots as we continue on with SpongeBob Season 2. And I guess I don't really have too much to say about these episodes other than we're going to continue the trend of Season 2 starting with a bang, I will say that much. And of course, just gotta extend a quick thank you to everyone who's been watching, liking, commenting, y'all know the drill. I just really do appreciate you guys, and I will say thank you every single review. And yeah, that's about all I've got to say for this little intro, so let's just get right into it. First up, we've got Something Smells, which, spoiler alert, continues the trend of Season 2 starting off with a bang. Just like Squid's Day Off and Your Shoes Untied, this episode is another extremely nostalgic one for me. It just makes me feel warm just thinking about it. And this time, I actually know why. Okay, so it's for a similar reason Texas was nostalgic for me. I think that was the episode. So I have the complete Season 2 DVD, right? And I've had it for a while, since it was one of the first ones I owned after I decided to collect all the SpongeBob episodes on DVD. And, on that DVD is audio commentary for this episode. Obviously, y'all know I eat behind-the-scenes stuff up, so I was definitely rewatching this episode a lot, so I could hear that audio commentary. So, that's probably why this episode is more nostalgic for me than others. And let me just get talking about the episode's actual content. So, first things first, this is a fantastic episode. Let me start with the beginning. We've got a very clear setup section in this first scene, and it's not as joke-focused as later parts of the episode, but obviously these first couple minutes are crucial to what happens later, kind of like in Squid's Day Off. And even if this first section isn't as funny as the rest, it's still very engaging, not to mention it's super adorable where SpongeBob is concerned. Like, his enthusiasm over his weekly tradition is very cute, and I love that he's so determined to have his Sunday that he makes this unholy mixture instead of, just giving up. And the peripheral gag about Gary having eaten the peanuts is pretty funny too. Like, I wouldn't really call it blink and you'll miss it, since there is a beat specifically for the gag to be made and paid attention to, but it's quick and not dwelled on, so that's why I called it a peripheral gag. I don't know, I just made that up. The characters in this episode, aka SpongeBob and Patrick, though other characters get on it too, are just great. I already said this while talking about the first scene, but throughout the entire episode, SpongeBob is just so cute, showing that the Season 1 trend has not died. I love how his Sunday to-do list is just him saying hi to everyone in Bikini Bottom. That's so wholesome and pure, and I think my heart, might explode immediately, actually. Even in his despair later in the episode, SpongeBob's pretty cute. And, to switch over to Patrick, once he enters the scene, he's also excellent here. He might be a little mean at points, but he's not, malicious about it, which is good enough for me. We really get the feeling that Patrick is simply trying to help SpongeBob in the best way he can, especially, once the whole, I'm ugly and I'm proud scene comes in, or, during, the movie. Speaking of that scene, we get another great example of, quote-unquote adult humor in Squidward's response to SpongeBob and Patrick's yelling. What he means here? Well, that's up to you. So another very important, perhaps the most important strength of this episode is its humor. I've been touching on certain jokes I like so far, but this episode is just hysterical throughout its entire runtime, and it does this by using all sorts of types of humor. We've got clever asides, with the Gary bit. We have more witty humor, like in Patrick's rambling or Squidward's little comment on the roof. And we have most notably visual humor in basically everything having to do with SpongeBob's bad breath. I love the way SpongeBob's halitosis basically makes bowling pins out of the Bikini Bottomites when he's greeting everyone. And the whole, thing on your chest joke, or, the funny glasses SpongeBob wears, those are just brilliant. And I just love that this episode taps into different types of comedy and does all of them well. It prevents things from even beginning to approach stale, which I don't think they would have anyway, but I think it helps. And honestly, the humor of this episode is built right into the bones of these 11 minutes because the entire premise of Something Smells is beautifully absurd with some great elements of reality attached with it. So yeah, someone who's got bad breath, that's not someone I want to be around. But the way this show makes it so over the top, like with people like simply vanishing or like whole buildings moving. Like that was hilarious. And even better is the reaction of the guy in the bathroom when Patrick comes in with bad breath. Like that was comedy gold. And SpongeBob and Patrick like mistaking the reactions to their rancid breath as a reaction to their visuals features is just a great misunderstanding that allows for some comedic moments, such as the ever iconic Ugly Barnacle story. And once SpongeBob and Patrick find out that they only like stink, their reaction is so happy and cute, and I love it. I love how they find joy in just being stinky. And I also love that we get the second Squidward cameo of the episode here, which ends the episode perfectly for me. Fun fact, but on the audio commentary, they actually said that Squidward was supposed to have a line here, but they decided to cut it. And frankly, I think it's better that way. Like, Squidward already had his one-liner early in the episode, and Squidward simply, like, blankly looking at SpongeBob and Patrick is a lot funnier than, another one-liner would have been, at least to me. So I guess to sum it all up, like, clearly I really, really liked this episode. In past years, it's been in my top 5 of Season 2. I won't say if it has placed in this go-around, but I will say that this episode, no matter what its rank ends up being, will always hold a special place in my heart. Like, it's so cute and wholesome, even if a little gross. And I also think that it's a very demonstrative example of the humor of SpongeBob SquarePants. Compared to other episodes of this season, this episode is relatively a little low on jokes, or less joke-packed, but that doesn't mean it's anywhere near not funny. And all of this is why this episode is going into my amazing tier, coming in with a score of 9.3 out of 10. Moving right along, we've got Bossy Boots, which is a pretty cute episode. Yeah, I think that's probably the first word I'd use to describe this one, cute. I quite like this episode too. Like, I like the return of Pearl, and I like the dynamics we see in this episode, and the plot is good, and the beginning of this episode wastes like no time getting straight into the main plot here, and this first scene includes a nice moment between Squidward and SpongeBob that would later be expanded on in Squid on Strike, which is another episode I really like. One thing that was off about this whole beginning though was, and I've always thought this, was the whole like pole joke, like where SpongeBob thinks that Pearl is pole. Like, I don't really know what it is, but that joke has always felt very stilted and almost out of place for me. Like, the delivery just like wasn't quite right, and it really like takes me out of the episode like every time. Luckily this episode regains its footing real quick, but like that's just something I wanted to point out. And so one thing I really like about this episode is Pearl and SpongeBob's relationship. So SpongeBob's enthusiasm bounces off Pearl's like very different kind of character, like really well, I'd say. And I thought it was cute that they got along so well. And the whole like naming scene was great because I really liked their enthusiasm for coming up with new names and aesthetics for the Krusty Krab. This scene was also accompanied with some cool visuals too, so that was another positive point. And, I really like how this episode kind of brought to mind the chaperone, with SpongeBob being a kind of older brother type figure. It's really just nice to see SpongeBob be like the older one, the one with the responsibility compared to another character, And since we're on this character topic, I also want to take the time here to say that I think that every character is pretty good here. Squidward is super funny with his utter disdain of everything around him, especially the new uniform, and Mr. Krabs is at one of his better appearances when it comes to being a good father to his daughter. I thought it was wholesome that he wanted to bring Pearl into the family business and share this with her, even if it wasn't really what she wanted. And of course, I really liked Pearl here. She was just very enjoyable, and she provides a breath of fresh air since she isn't very utilized, especially at this point in the show. And lastly, SpongeBob is just adorable, and he really brings the dramatics in the latter part of this episode. Like, the part where he's in the mascot is comedy gold, and I like how the scene where SpongeBob, fires Pearl demonstrates their friendly, sibling-like relationship. And Mr. Krabs' reaction to that is also just, like, too funny, especially, like, how he gets resuscitated by money. And, to continue on this ending part of the episode, I thought it was pretty good and, once again, really cute. So, poor SpongeBob does end up getting scammed by Mr. Krabs once again, but he's really happy about it. So, I can't help but feel a little warm. My heart aches for my favorite snail, though, because he does look quite dismayed at, all of the new stuff in the pineapple. But, that means that this episode ends with Gary. So that's basically an automatic win right there. Other automatic wins in this episode are the very nice and vibrant backgrounds, especially with the interior and exterior of the Krusty Krab. I also really loved the original song in this episode, which is also called Bossy Boots. It's a very catchy song, which I say completely unironically. Okay, I will enjoy this song on its own, period. And the lyrics are very tongue-in-cheek, or maybe that's not the right phrase, I don't know. But, like, the lyrics refer to the show, but, like, almost in a fourth wall breaking way, kind of. I don't know, just go listen to the song. I'm linking it. Yeah, okay. So moving on, I also wanted to say that this episode is kind of still relevant today in terms of, like, appealing to younger people, like its message about that. And, by that I mean, like, I can totally see people in my age group, college-aged, so a bit older than Pearl, but still, going to a hip cafe. Now, of course, it wouldn't be called the Cuddly Crab, and it wouldn't be covered in pastels and stuffed animals, or maybe it would. I feel like that's becoming popular. I'd low-key go to that, if I actually went to cafes, which I don't. But, I think the idea of changing something into a cafe to appeal to younger people is evergreen. Honestly, this episode gets nearly philosophical in that way. And now that I'm thinking about it, is this episode a metaphor for gentrification? I'm kidding. But, that's a bit too much of a stretch. But I'm just saying there's elements here. But just wait till I get to Squid on Strike, and then we can talk. But anyway, I do like this episode, but I would be remiss if I were to just pretend it's, like, all great. This episode is unfortunately pretty slow, like, in between its funny moments, and this episode's kind of missing the kind of rapid-fire comedy that we've come to expect in the future of SpongeBob SquarePants. I guess, like, at this point, the rapid-fire comedy hadn't really kicked off yet, but anyway. Not to mention, like, not every comedic moment hits. Like, I mentioned the pole moment earlier, and, like, the whole salads thing is, like, okay. So, yeah, with all of that in mind, this episode is going to be the first episode of Season 2 to be put in my great tier, coming in with a score of 8 out of 10. As always, I just wanted to end with some closing thoughts of mine, though today I have very few. I guess, like, these are 2 episodes that I do quite enjoy, even if I do have a couple little problems with Bossy Boots, but I think that they really do continue the trend of Season 2 really starting off well, like, even if Bossy Boots is in the great tier. So, that's always nice to see that a season starts off, on some pretty good feet. And yeah, I mean, other than that, there really isn't too much to say about these episodes or about this review, it's just the same as always. And I guess I'll just go ahead and end it here. Oh, I did want to say, go listen to the Bossy Boots song. I'm serious. It's actually good, okay? Okay, now that's all I wanted to say. So, with all of that said, I'm going to go ahead and end the review here, and I will see you guys next time.